Right.
Well, that was kind of leading into my next question. What can a parent say if they do need to call 911 or involve police to help them quickly understand that the person has autism and that they only want help getting the situation under control and not arrest? Like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Like, something involving autism can look like a domestic disturbance. It can look like, a drug situation. Like, and we know what it is, but how can we kind of convey that quickly? Like, if we don't have the smart 911, or maybe we're not in our home that they're used to.
Mm-hmm. First things first is, be as blunt as you possibly can, is, state it's a mental health crisis. I wouldn't necessarily go into like the specifics. This is, an individual with an intellectual disability, I would just, this is a mental health crisis. This is a mental health crisis. This is a mental health crisis. Ask for what's called a CIT officer. The CIT officers are crisis intervention trained. It is a international training program that partners law enforcement with mental health professionals, organizations like National Alliance on Mental Illness, to provide a week-long training designed on non-physical interventions for mental health related crises. And those, in the vast majority of agencies, the officers that are CIT trained volunteer to go to those trainings. So they already have somewhat of a passion for responding to, an understanding of responding to those type of situations. So asking for a CIT officer is kind of like a red flag and a clue to responding officers. Hey, if they're asking for a CIT, okay, this might be mental health related, not necessarily battery, crime related, right?
Right.
Because the call type might be told to the officers, you're responding to a physical disturbance. That has a different mindset in a lot of officers' minds of, if I'm responding to a physical disturbance, I'm picturing somebody's getting beat up, it's a crime, it's battery. When I am responding to, Officer Lugar, you're responding to a mental health crisis, I'm already starting to think of, all right, what are my de-escalation techniques? What, interventions? Do I need to get my, clinician on the iPad here shortly? Just a little bit different mindset. You're trying to hit the officer over the head before they show up. This is a health issue. Mm-hmm. Let's get EMS started, right? Everybody loves firefighters. Have a firefighter come. Have him, talk to the loved one, and the officers can, stay back. That's why I love having a paramedic on my team. If I can't get rapport or police or a trigger, I can turn to my paramedic. Like, you want to talk to a paramedic? Mm-hmm. People are more inclined to say, yeah, I'd talk to a paramedic, because there's not that fear of I'm going to go to jail if I say the wrong thing or if I do X, Y, or Z. Right. And they're great at, encouraging people to go to the hospital if they need to go, because that's where paramedics take people to the hospital. Police take people to jail. And it can get, in a crisis, it's hard to think that a police officer is saying, hey, let's go to the hospital. Yeah. It always makes perfect sense for a paramedic to say it. Yeah. So that's another tool for whatever local jurisdiction you have is, if they have a paramedic that's, able to come out and respond, that might be a good de-escalation opportunity as well. But just calling 911 is be specific with what's going on, what you want, telling dispatch, hey, I just need help getting this, calm down or de-escalate a little bit, or hey, I need help getting my loved one to the hospital. Stating it's a mental health crisis, asking for that CIT officer.
Yeah. I feel like I can answer this question because I hear your passion for people and, your profession as well, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So some people, they call the jails like the new state institutions because there's not a lot of options for people with mental health issues. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we address that?
You're right. Jails are increasingly housing, individuals with mental health needs, and study after study shows it's not a conducive place for treatment, recovery, stabilization. There's, constantly advocating to, your local legislators for change in the law that allows for, quicker access, more access to community-based resources. Mm-hmm. Part of NobleAct is, because we're trying to divert people away from the jail. Yes, there may have been a battery, there may have been, a minor crime. But if we can get a connection to a resource that, and that's going to address the issue, that's going to be the preferred route than the criminal justice system. Now, I say that with the caveat of, sometimes jail has to happen, right? Depending on what the issue is and what the law states, right? If we have certain things, sometimes that has to go that route, but we can still, advocate on the back end, treatment, support, resources. But we do have a shortage in, providers, a shortage of resources and wait times. And so advocating to your local legislators, your politicians, your community leaders for, hey, if we want to reduce incarceration, we have to have an alternative. There has to be some other place that's not just a hospital ER that first responders, that families can, bring a loved one to get that intervention done, that stabilization done. And then if you can kind of have, jail on the left side, you have that, alternative like Indianapolis's AIC, Assessment Intervention Center, and hospital. Now you have just more options and allows the officers to have more discretion. Whereas in a lot of cases, officers typically have 3 options: jail, hospital, or nothing.
Right.
And, for jail, I have to have, do I have probable cause? Was there a crime? Do I have that to go to jail? Same thing with the hospital. I have to have certain criteria to involuntarily take you to the hospital because you have a right to refuse treatment. So unless I meet that requirement, I may be able to take you to jail. I may not, or hospital. I may take you to the hospital. I may not. Depends on, do you meet that requirement from the state level and the state statute? Or I have nothing. I just leave you there and, God, I hope it gets okay. But if we have that third option, which again will only come from a systemic level of, change in policy, it will allow the jails to become less and less of a just housing place.
Right. I never actually had thought about the connection between mental health issues and so clearly, I guess, than how you just said that, if we have more options, we can do our job more efficiently, better, and happily for us and the people we provide services for, we serve. So that adds some clarity to that. Thank you. Couple more questions.
I feel like we kind of covered this one about like who does the police autism training. Do they speak to parents or family members with autism to get a clearer picture? So I guess like I have a daughter that is pretty aggressive and, she does the head banging and the self-injury and stuff. So how would I go and kind of like, would it be more effective to kind of bring her and let them see what she does or kind of just have a discussion? Like how could a parent do that?
I would have just discussion. I wouldn't necessarily, wait for an issue to be like, here, look at my daughter, struggling and having an issue. If you have video of a previous incident, that's always really beneficial too. So that way you can explain it, like this is what she did, and also, you have be able to show, hey, this is, what it looks like for my specific child and her cases. So if you were responding to me, these are the things to kind of look for. But just the more you can kind of pre-plan that and do that meet and greet and be like, have a plan set up, come up with your own almost version of a safety plan for first responders. If they show up, this is what you want them to do, kind of step by step. Here's coping skills, here are triggers, here are things that as mom, I'm most concerned about that I need your help to get to a hospital or, detain or restrain to ensure that she's safe.
I feel like the next 2 questions have been asked, but I'll just kind of gloss over them just if you wanted to add anything in addition. So obviously there's a fear of calling 911 with caregivers of loved ones with these type of behaviors. And it sounds like